Hi guys, this is gsn1.com and I'm here with a review of the Vivo X80 Lite, also known in some parts of the world as the Vivo V23 selfie phone, only the fact that this light handset doesn't have dual LED flashes to accompany the selfie camera separates it from the V23. So as I said before, it's a selfie phone and it stands for that on account of the powerful 50 megapixel front camera with 4K video capture. Now aside from that, it's pretty much a typical mid-range phone as probably delivered by the notch, the teardrop notch you can see at the top side. It's got an AMOLED screen, it's got a Dimensity 900 CPU and a 64 megapixel main camera with optical image stabilization as some of the selling points. Also, I would say pretty fast charging at 44 watts. Okay, so let's get going. First things first, the design. As you can see, the phone has this flat frame which has been inspired by the iPhone recently and present even on the lower end handsets like the Redmi Note 11 for example. Now the backside is special. It's a sort of fluorite AG glass. It changes color under UV light. Normally it's supposed to be golden, but in certain angles and under certain UV light it turns to green or blue. The phone itself is, I would say, pretty slim and light, 7.8 millimeters and 186 grams. In spite of being so slim and light, I would dare to call it a bit too wide in order to be comfortably used with a single hand. And of course the teardrop notch is anything but sexy. We also have rather large bezels for the screen. Now, glass at the back, glass at the front and a plastic frame between them. The build is quite solid, but I'm not a fan of these plasticky and clicky buttons. Check them out. Let me take it closer to my microphone so you can hear them. They're very clicky and that's not a flattering thing for it. We also don't have IP certification here, even though there's a gasket on the SIM tray. So that's about it. I would say it's pretty grippy and comfy, even though with a single hand it's a bit too wide to use properly. Now as far as the screen is concerned, this panel here is a 6.44 inch AMOLED Full HD resolution and also 90 Hz refresh rate, which should be good enough for gamers, HDR10 Plus support and a plastic screen protection applied from the factory on top of the panel. Once again, a rather big bezels, particularly the chin if you look here. Now if you want to check out a video sample, we got this one here and here we go. As you can see, the teardrop notch intrudes in your video experience, sadly, but the panel itself is actually not bad. It's quite bright, has a solid contrast even in the full sunlight, and I would have to say that the colors are pretty spot on, even though a bit too white for my liking. The black is deep, the white is pure, so the typical advantages of the AMOLED are here, as well as the wide view angles. Okay, so quality panel all around. And of course, this being an AMOLED, it has a pental matrix pixel arrangement. Now, when it comes to the brightness, let's check it out here. It's a bit of a devilish number, 666 lux units. Yes, it happens sometimes. It's above the predecessor Vivo V23, above the Honor 70 and the Nothing Phone 1. It's below the Motorola Edge 30, Huawei Nova 10 Pro. Now I think we're pretty much done with the screen here. I think it's time to discuss other aspects of the handset. And by the way, if you think that the screen here is not very bright, it's on the fact that we're trying to properly calibrate it for filming. You can see here the level of brightness, and if I turned it all the way up, as you can see, it's crazy bright. Now let's put it down here for a more proper experience, trying to get this right. Okay, so now we should probably go inside the phone, and inside we find the familiar CPU. I always say that, but this time it's actually pretty popular. MediaTek Dimensity 900, 6nm octa-core with a Mali GPU, also present on the Oppo Reno 7 5G, OnePlus Nord Core Edition 2 and Oppo Find X5 Lite. Even though this is a mid-range phone, Vivo is being generous with the specs, 8 gigs of RAM and even 256 GB of storage, plus microSD. I didn't notice any sort of lag. You could even run games without a problem, even though I didn't insist too much on it. Aside from Asphalt and Genshin, didn't run many other titles, but I'm sure you can run PUBG on it easily. Not sure if the ultra or high details will be available. Didn't notice any overheating either, so that's also fine. When it comes to the benchmarks, we have those here. Let me start off with Antutu 9. Here we're just above the Samsung Galaxy A53 and OnePlus Nord CE2, also Motorola Edge 30 Neo. That's where we're at in this Antutu. We're below Vivo V23 and the Xiaomi 12 Lite, while in Geekbench 5 multi-core. We're just above the predecessor Vivo V23 and the Redmi Note 11 Pro. as well as surpassing the OnePlus Nord Core Edition 2 Lite. We're below the Realme 9 Pro Plus and the OnePlus Nord 2. We've done a bunch of 3D Mark tests as well, and if you pick the Extreme 3D Mark Wildlife, here we are, just above the OnePlus Nord Core Edition 2 again, and above the Motorola Moto G82. Still below the Galaxy A53, which wasn't spectacular CPU-wise, and below the Xiaomi 12 Lite. I would say it's typical behavior for a handset which is priced around or below $400. Now, the temperature didn't provide any problems for us. So if you go here, when it comes to the temperature achieved by the device, we achieved 29.6 degrees Celsius in benchmark, so which is definitely foreign from overheating. Now, the battery here is a 4500 mAh as shown here, and it charges at 44 watts with a bundle charger. We're promised on paper to have 61% in 30 minutes, so let's see what we've got. Now, when it comes to the actual test results, here we go. They're quite impressive. I'm going to start off with the video playback time, which is 18 hours and 51 minutes. Pretty impressive, beating the likes of the Realme GT Neo 3 and also Motorola Edge 30. It's below the Nothing Phone 1 and the Honor 70 though. When it comes to continuous usage, we're at the 14 hours and 42 minutes mark. Also not bad, above Motorola Edge 30, Samsung Galaxy A53 and the famous Nothing Phone 1. We're below the Poco M4 Pro and the Xiaomi 12 Lite as well as the Nokia X30. The charging is a bit on the long side for nowadays standards, 1 hour and 5 minutes. The equal of the Nothing Phone 1 by the way, and in 30 minutes you're at about 59%, just in case you're wondering. Now when it comes to acoustics, this handset doesn't offer an audio jack, but it does offer an adapter in the box from audio jack to headphones and also a pair of headphones, which is rare nowadays. It has a singular speaker at the bottom, the earpiece doesn't serve that role, and we don't have another dedicated speaker at the top side. Now the actual experience goes something like this. Not a bad drum and bass song, I have to say. Okay, so not much bass here. This speaker seems to love the high notes. It's actually good with high notes and voices. It gets a bit noisy if you're listening to metal music. It's very good for electro and EDM, not exactly a rocker's speaker, the bottom one. So if you're into heavy metal, it's not for you. Now, when it comes to the actual tests, we have here the volume power. We measure with a decibel meter and achieved 85.2 decibels, which is quite strong with an acoustic sample test. It beats Nothing Phone 1, Galaxy A53 and the Honor 70. It stays below the Xiaomi 12X and Motorola Edge 30. In games, it's just decent, 96.9 decibels. You usually expect something like 100 decibels here. It's above OnePlus Nord Core Edition 2 and above Redmi Note 11, but below Honor 70, Motorola Edge 30 and Galaxy A53. Now, camera-wise, the star of the show is obviously the front camera. 50 megapixel and autofocus and 4K capture is everything one could desire from a selfie camera phone. So this camera at the top is familiar because we've seen it on the Vivo V23. It also brings eye autofocus, but it doesn't bring the two LED flashes from the Vivo V23. It also has electronic image stabilization, just so you know. And at the back side there are 3 cameras. So 64 megapixel main camera, which has optical image stabilization and a Samsung sensor, 8 megapixel ultra wide with a large 120-degree angle, and a small 2 megapixel sensor for your macro needs. Triple LED flash and dual tone from what I can see, the promise of AI camera, and this also shoots 4K video. A lot of camera modes, I have to say, and the most interesting of them is definitely the fact that we have vlog movie effects here, a bunch of templates which will help you create tutorials, travel vlogs, and a bunch of food outings with friends, but all of them are guided and have certain templates to play with. You're adding mini films of about 15 seconds and coupling them into a collage. That's what it does. Now let's talk about the gallery of shots we've taken with this phone, and we have quite a few of them. Okay, so somehow in December we captured a bit of sun. We had a sunny day, and these are the photographs we've taken. Now I have to say that the ultra wide, as you can see, a bit more washed out and white compared to the main camera shots. By the way, I love the blue hue capture by the main camera. Several more shots here and a bit of a zoom test there. Pretty nice close-ups. Of course, the macros leave a bit to be desired as far as the details are concerned. So there are a few things I'm happy with here. The color blue, the color yellow, and the color green, they're pretty well represented. You can see some chromatic differences between the main camera and the ultra-wide camera, and of course lesser details on the sides of the ultra-wide shots. Now going forward, this is actually the zoom test, and if you go past 2 or 3x, you start to feel that you're dealing with a mid-range phone in the end. We have a lot of captures here, but the most important of them are of course the selfie ones, on account of this being more of a selfie phone than a regular mid-range handset. The first ones aren't very impressive, I have to say. However, as time goes by and we started fiddling with the settings, they got a bit better. I love the details here, the texture of the hair, the eyes, particularly the eyes impressed me the most in these captures, and also the texture of the clothes. Of course, you can apply a multitude of filters, and the focus was, I would say, underwhelming at first, but then I learned the proper distance and things got better. Once again, the eyes are perfectly rendered here, and no, I wasn't using any beautification in this scenario. Okay, we go further. Once again, normal shot, the tree is too wide. We're capturing it with the ultra wide and it fits better. Now let's see what else we have here. A few other good close-ups, so that's something to remember, that the main camera does good close-ups. A quick comparison here would be to actually, this camera resembles the Poco F4 camera and also the Realme 9 Pro Plus. That's the level we're at. The sky doesn't look that bad, to be honest, color-wise. And going forward, a few other colorful objects. This is an area with less sun and the hues are a bit colder than the ones from before. Okay, going even further, we have a large selection of course, selfies. This time I started playing with a bunch of filters and effects. You can see them here. This is one that makes it look like the image is quickly shifting behind me. Got this one here. Got a bunch of extras which will highlight your skin texture or the background or the contrast or the shadows. So basically you have your work cut out for you. There's a lot of effects to play with as far as the selfies are concerned. And I also tried to do a bunch of bokehs with the main camera using this statue here. By the way, the bokeh is very well applied. This actually reminds me of an Oppo Reno phone behavior, even though it's a bit cheaper than an Oppo Reno. Of course, we have Santa with bokeh applied. So far, I would have to say that the close-ups, the bokeh and the selfies are the strong suits, as well as the colors green, yellow and blue. Okay, several more shots here, quality ones I would have to say, but be advised, in spite of the fact that we have autofocus, every once in a while I felt that the focus should have been a bit better, a bit more, well, focused on my face rather than the background. Okay, so these have been the daytime shots. I'll say it again, we're pretty much on par with the Realme 9 Pro Plus and the Poco F4, back camera wise, while the front camera is, I would say, pretty close to what the Vivo V23 was offering months ago. These are daytime shots. Let's go to the low light. There are actually two scenarios here. There's the first scenario with a bunch of buildings and a very underwhelming ultra-wide shot. Then there's the second scenario in the later part of the gallery. If you use the night mode, you'll definitely be happy with what you achieve here. Everything becomes clearer. In general, you will not be happy by the size of the lights you're capturing. They're sometimes too big and sometimes the image isn't as detailed as you like it to be. By the way, this is a special filter because nighttime capture gets its own filters here. Okay, let's maybe try and find some monuments or some funky house. A regular shot here. Ultra wide shot, which is a bit of a letdown, especially as far as the lighting is concerned. But all in all, you should be pretty safe with these huge lights. You get rid of them if and only if you apply the night mode. By the way, this is a pretty solid shot of this fir tree here and a very nice lighting around it. We also have a landmark building here, but before that, let's see some selfies. Sadly, here I have beautification on. You can clearly see that. It's got that baby doll face effect. And I'll be honest, I somehow expected a bit more from the nighttime selfies compared to what I got. I mean, they're not bad, but the highlight appears when you activate the so-called flash. Basically the screen becoming white and functioning as a flash. The focus was fine, the bokeh was well applied, and the effects are cool, but without a flash, it's not memorable. The shots aren't that special. If you use the flash, you'll get some highlights of your face, and the eyes will be better shown compared to a photo without that flash. And this is the building I was talking about. It's in Bucharest. It's sort of a landmark, has been for the past month or so. Looks pretty, but the lights are a bit bigger than I wanted them to be. Of course, the night mode shot is the one that triumphs here. And as I said before, I have another set of photos here. I think these are actually the ones with the flash. So check it out. This is without the flash. This is with the flash, where the screen lights up in white to properly reveal my face. The difference is quite important, so you'd better keep that on. Now we're changing the scenery. We're in an amusement park, and I would have to say that the colors are once again pretty represented, but still at a mid-range level. It doesn't transcend the mid-range experience. Okay, so we're done with the photos. Let's talk about the videos. So we have a lot of photos, but we also have a lot of videos, 29 of them. Let's get the ball rolling. So first of all, we got the panning here. Let's turn the volume down. Okay, so regular panning. The colors feel a bit cold. That's my first impression. Sadly, the videos are also shaky, particularly the 4K ones. Good blues, good blue hues here, and a lovely level of detail for the 4K capture. Now next up we got the, I think, zoom test, which is this one here. It gets pretty shaky and it's a bit annoying to perform, the zoom, so a bit underwhelming. And next up, the first selfie video test.
Vivo X80 Lite.
It's a bit shaky because we don't have activated the steady mode. There's a special steady mode, and you'll notice the difference. By the way, nice focus, nice details, and the background is quite fine. It checks out for vlogging. This is the steady mode. Actually, it's the stationary feature. As you can see, it keeps me in the center of the image at all time, like you do on those Zoom or Skype calls. It feels like you're filming a music video for an electronic band or something like that. It's pretty nice, but there's a bit of trepidation in the background. Still, nice to have the person in the center of the image if you're doing vlogging. The thing I loved the most about the filming was the bokeh. The portrait effect is very well applied to the video. I would say shockingly well. Ever since the Oppo Reno series, I haven't seen bokeh so well applied, so kudos for that. Okay, so everybody's wondering how we're doing in the stabilization test. So let's actually do that. We have multiple videos here, so I think I should start with this one here. Standard stabilization, 4K video, not bad. If you go to ultra stabilization, things may get a bit shakier. There's a bit of trepidation here and there, but not bad for a mid-range phone. This is the other one. Ultra steady, full HD. Actually, to be honest, a bit shakier than expected. I would actually prefer the standard stabilization or even no stabilization at all in order to deliver a proper video. And I'm also not that impressed by the, as you can see here, the focus test. Okay, so let's not get a copyright strike. It takes just a bit longer than expected to properly focus on the close-up rather than the background, so that's about it. Okay, so once again, I'll say it again, we're at the level of the Realme 9 Pro Plus. That's where we're at, and the Poco F4 at the best of times. A bit below the Galaxy A53 and the Nothing Phone 1, while the selfie camera is able to shine in this area. Now, as far as the nighttime videos are concerned, it shows a bit of a limitation. It's clearly a mid-range handset. There's a bit of noise, there's a bit of extra noise, maybe even compared to other mid-range phones like the Honor 70 or even the Nothing Phone. A bit shakiness and purple on the sides, particularly if you're watching one of those videos where we tested the stabilization. The street lights are a bit amplified, the image is shaky, however, not as shaky as one would expect for a mid-range phone. And of course, we also tried out the selfie videos, which honestly are nothing to write home about. I mean, they're okay and all, but nothing truly special. So that's about it. Keep this comparison in mind, similar to the Poco F4 and Realme 9 Pro Plus, with an extra selfie edge. On the connectivity front, this is a dual nano SIM experience with 5G support and Wi-Fi dual band. The phone also provides support for Bluetooth 5.2 as well as GPS, GLONASS, BDS and Galileo. Even though some people are saying it doesn't have NFC, it does have NFC, and there's an USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom side. The calls were pretty decently loud and clear, and when it comes to the connectivity speed, we have good old speed test here, revealing some results, which you can see here. Now the results we achieved are quite impressive as far as 5G is concerned: 586 Mbps downloads and 55 Mbps uploads. On Wi-Fi, decent for not having Wi-Fi 6, 428 over 466. Okay, so a bit of a nice surprise here. Initially the phone was launched with Android 12 and Funtouch OS 12, and guess what? As soon as we put it out of the box, it got Android 13 and Funtouch OS 13. I mean, it's not as big of a change as the Android 13 update of the Samsung phone was, but it's still a change. The leftmost feed includes the news. If you want recents, you can see them displayed here, or you can display them like a carousel, or in this shape. You can close them down if you want. Finally, the drop-down area has some decent looking quick settings, the ones from the previous iteration, well, previous. The Vivo V21, for example, had horrible looking quick settings. They felt antique, they felt like Android 5 or something like that. This one's still not my cup of tea, but at least decent looking. Okay, so I'm using these buttons for some reason. You can also use the classic swipes. Let's see what else we have here. If you pinch the screen, you'll get treated to the wallpapers, which are actually pretty cool looking. You can also play with the UI color. This is the customization options, the color palette which Android 12 brought and Android 13 expands. You can apply them to the icons as well. And of course, widgets, which still resemble the graphics of the game Monument Valley, just like they did on the previous version of Android. These are the ones which Vivo provides. Okay, so the security, we have the fingerprint scanner in the screen. I press it like this. It's pretty snappy and responsive, even though at first it was hard to get used to it, possibly because of its positioning. We have connectivity options here, lock screen and wallpaper. Of course, there's an always on display with some customization here. Not as many options as the OnePlus phones, but still enough to give a personalized vibe to it. Okay, we have a simple mode. We have a lot of dynamic effects. I'm actually shocked by it. Ambient light, fingerprint icon, fingerprint recognition, facial recognition, charging animation, and so forth. System updates, RAM and storage. Of course, privacy dashboard, popular ever since Android 12. Shows which of your sensors and features have been used by the apps. There's an ultra game mode, surprisingly complex for a non-gaming phone. It even has an esports mode, and most of the core features of the mode are triggered by a side swipe, which triggers a special side menu during games. We have frame rate priority, which basically keeps the frames rate in check as you play the game, even a complex one like Genshin Impact, and mute calls plus that optimization for the touch, so you won't do accidental touches. Digital well-being is also here. Well, as far as the pre-installed apps are concerned, there's the useful iManager with its tools. You got encryption, app cloning, phone cooling. Yes, there's a special feature which cools the phone down if need be. Okay, temperature is normal, and of course you can do a security scan for viruses, check out the data traffic and clean up some space. Other pre-installed apps, well, we have the app drawer here. Let's see, I see there's a notes-taking application, Notes. There's LinkedIn, there's Netflix, there's Spotify, there's also TikTok, there's YouTube, weather, and a bunch of pre-installed stuff like the music player from Vivo and Easy Share. I think that's about it, give or take a few settings which will help you with the accessibility and usage of the phone, a bunch of gestures, or this Easy Touch, which is basically a floating widget with useful settings and apps, as you can see for yourself here. Okay, so now we're totally done. Once again, this is Android 13, not 12, and it's time for the verdict. This is the Vivo X80 Lite, and on the pros list we have a cute looking backside which can change color under UV light. At the front we have a bright screen with a, once again, pretty weird lux meter level of 666 lux units. The grip is quite fine on account of the flat frame. Performance was also fine, no overheating, and even some gaming if you really want it. Battery life was satisfying, particularly the video playback, which is top level, I would say. Charging is decently fast. There's also the fact that you're getting headphones in the box and an adapter, the USB-C to 3.5mm. It's also solid for vlogging if you're strictly referring to the videos and the selfies which we've taken here, more during the day than during the night. Takes a bunch of nice shots with the main camera. I will only highlight the main camera. It has Android 13 and a decent stabilization. Those are the pros. Now, on the cons, it doesn't have IP certification. Also, the buttons are a bit clicky and the plastic frame feels a bit cheap. It's a bit wider than expected for such a small diagonal. The notch at the top is quite ugly, as is the chin, you can see here. Plus the bezels are quite big. The speaker at the bottom doesn't deliver much bass, and the ultra-wide camera shots are, well, far from impressive, even though this shot actually looks pretty decent. And the macro shots, of course, can easily be replaced by close-ups. I have to say that the lights are a bit too bright in the nighttime photos, and overall the nighttime experience didn't impress me as much as I expected to be. So that's pretty much it. When everything's said and done, it's a vlogging phone first, and then your average mid-range handset. So this 50 megapixel selfie camera is going to be the core of it, particularly for video and those cool effects for your photos. It delivers, keep that in mind, it delivers the best bokeh I've seen on a sub $500 phone, and there's one video which shows that the most clear. So if there's one thing to remember here, is the fact that the portrait videos are going to look excellent. So vlogging phone and a rival for maybe the nothing phone and the Honor 70. It wants to be that, but it ends up as a rival for the Poco F4 and Realme 9 Pro Plus. That's it from us. Hope you enjoyed this review. You'll become a vlogger using this handset. Hopefully the price goes down towards $300, which feels a bit more realistic. That's it from us. Goodbye.